Hello. Welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time, I just want to say welcome. Here we talk all things relationship, family, marriage, whether you want to get married or you're already married, how to make it better. And we love to say here, except the Lord build a house, we labor in vain that build it. Psalms 127 verse 1. My name is Avril Buncombe, the creator of Creating the Family You Always Wanted framework. And we love to help people in marriages because we believe that if you're going to be in a marriage, you should make it work. It should be happy. You should enjoy it. All right? So stay with us as we go through this video. Let's get started.
Red flags, and did you decide to ignore them, or what is it that you saw that was a bit not right that time when you were courting?
So here, this man, he was asked if there was any red flags, and that's something that we always want to ask. Is there any red flags?
During our initial marriage, she was the best. She was really the best because she was very, very supportive. She was not demanding at all. She was very homely, very simple, and she knew exactly how much I'm earning because I had shown her my payslip before we even got married, so that she doesn't have very high expectations, and therefore we lived a very, very simple life. That, for example, she was not demanding, like I need fancy clothes, like I need fancy hairstyles, or all the kind of thing. She knew that our resources were really limited. But she was one person who got angry at very small issue, and she would be provoked with a very small thing, and unfortunately she should kind of keep quiet, and she wouldn't talk.
So here, he said there was not really any red flags. But as the interview went on, he said yes, there were things that she reacted to that were simple situation that it got her angry and upset. So that probably could be counted as a red flag. But let's just go on.
She would be there would be a lot of sulking. It's like there would be cold war. And as time went by, when she has gotten angry, even for 1 week, for 2 weeks, so unless I restart the conversation, she won't, and it could go on for long. For me, I took it like it's normal, it's okay. And I was determined to make my marriage work, no matter what. So that some of those issues that I saw, I thought.
So here, this man is saying that even though there was issues, he was still willing to make his marriage work. The communication was not there the way it should be. Everything was contained, but just the physical action, the non-verbal communication indicated that there was an issue. But when asked about it, it was always everything was fine. Let's continue.
That maybe they're just okay. They are common things in marriage. However, I don't want to give an impression like I was the victim. Both of us were victims. And as time progressed, I realized that at this moment now, I feel all of us were victims. We were victims in the sense that we had issues in our marriage, but we were piling them up. So that the layers of issues were going up. They were really going up to the extent that the layer of issues tripped over, and when it tripped over about 2 years ago, it tripped over with the catastrophic results. The reason why I'm saying that both of us were issues, we did not know how to handle the issues. Okay, I feel that in marriage, first and foremost, issues will be there.
Yeah.
Conflict is normal, it is healthy, it helps people grow, it helps people resolve issues. So I'm not talking of a marriage without conflict, but I'm talking about how do people resolve conflict. We had issues, yes.
Yes. So here we're talking about conflict. And yes, in every marriage, there's conflict. But the question is, how do you handle conflict? And we're still talking about maybe looking at the red flags that was ignored at the beginning or at the beginning of the marriage that was not handled properly or taken care of. And so what happened after 20 plus years, then all that frustration finally came out. Let's continue to listen.
Yes. But we preferred piling them instead of addressing them. Okay, problems are there, all right, but I've now having matured, especially after having gone what I've gone through. Now I realize that in marriage, people are supposed to stop the war. People have to come to soberness. They sit down and talk about issues. But in our case, it's like I waited for her to take the first initiative. As I'm waiting and expecting her to take the first initiative, she's also waiting for me to take the first initiative. So in the end, nobody took up initiative. Months came and passed, years came and passed, and the issues were piling until one day it blew up. And therefore, I would say that both of us were victims. And it's unfortunate that it is not possible for us to sit down together. Even now. I still remain blocked, but I respect her decision. I wish that wasn't the issue. But the issues were worsened more when we came home. Okay, we have had other issues within the homestead. We have had other issues within the family. So adding this to her nature, then I suppose she has been unable to carry the load, and hence giving in. I know of course, where you live, there are issues, could be neighbors, could be relatives, and all that kind of thing. And therefore, it ended up the way it ended up.
How was her relationship with your family, her in-laws in this case?
The relationship between her and her in-laws has never been good, unfortunately. It hasn't been good, really. And even right now, as we speak, they're not in talking terms.
With none of them?
With none of them, yes. I have tried my level best. I have tried to be as neutral.
And it's coming from a male perspective, which is good because usually we hear from the women. And so here this man is telling us his experience, that not only that there was issues, there were conflict within the home and the exterior, whether it was the job or the family circle, but there were issues that were not dealt with properly. And because of that, those issues, there was this break in this relationship because of that lack of communication. And so let's listen.
As I can between them, but it hasn't worked. She makes up her mind, and that is it. So that's the way it is.
In your opinion, are there things you would have changed looking back at the journey and how this journey led you to this place where you decided this is not working? Are there things you would have changed to maybe salvage what was remaining of the marriage?
Yes, there are things that I could have done, but unfortunately I didn't. Like I said earlier, both of us were victims of ignorance. We didn't know. We knew where we wanted to go, but we did not bother to find out the route that will take us there. There's nothing difficult if two people resolve to dialogue soberly, without bitterness, without accusation, appreciating the positive in each of us. Like for me, honestly, I will always be in debt to her. I mean, she is a wonderful person that walked into my life. I have no regret whatsoever. Every single moment, I know she was most persevering. We went through a lot of tribulation, finances, family travails. She stood the test. I stood the test. And therefore, I honestly want to say that I will forever be in debt to her. I have nothing bad against her, and I have no bad report about her. The only thing that I can say is we were different.
Right.
And our differences unfortunately reached a point of irreconcilable point. I wish it wasn't the case. This one would possibly have worked well for us if she had agreed to sit without being angry at each other, and then very, very soberly bring out each other's fault. And right now, when I talk to the people, it's to do self-analysis, to assess yourself. How about every day, or maybe once a week at least? Marriage is like a sun-king solar system. You know, you have to move the solar panel if you really want maximum benefit out of the solar system. You have to constantly move the solar panel according to the direction of the sun. I believe he who moves the solar panel according to the position of the sun receives more benefit than the solar panel that is fixed. Because what about when the sun goes to the other side? It doesn't get
sunshine.
the sunshine, yes. So marriage, more than talking, because love seems to be apparent. Love seems to be fading with time. Not really fading as such, but love comes to a point where maybe familiarity, you know, with too many familiarities, it's like it's normal. So, yeah, I think dialogue, having wisdom, and recognizing that all marriages have challenges.
So here, he's saying how important dialoguing, communicating, expressing your feelings, spending time to go over whatever issue, whether it's good or bad, just together to share, to check in with each other. That's so important in marriage, that we check in with each other, because sometimes we might think that everything is okay, but the other person has that issue bottled up inside and really just don't really know how to express it. As he said, they both did not know what to do. They just thought it was normal and this is how marriage is supposed to go. And sometimes we are so unprepared for marriage. It doesn't matter what age you are when you get into marriage. If you don't have the right information, then somewhere along the line, you might find yourself going through conflict. Let's continue to listen.
Only marriage that might pose probably a very big challenge is a violent marriage. My marriage was never violent. Actually, all this close to 24 years and 7 years, we never fought.
Wow.
We never fought. So she can never accuse me of being a violent person. I was never a drinker. I was never a womanizer. So basically meaning that most of the issues were actually just domestic. Right. Then they could easily be handled. But again, like I said, I don't want to make myself the victim. Both of us were victim of ignorance. People wisen up with time in marriage.
Yeah.
And I'm wisening up when a lot of damage has been done.
It's been done already.
Mhm.
What is it that, you know, was the last nail on the coffin? What is it that made you call off this marriage?
The last nail on the coffin, the blow that broke the camel's back and finally is when she moved out of the bed, the marital bed. To the married people out there, and I want to say that this is the worst thing that you can ever do. It's the worst punishment because of that aspect of resentment. We weren't getting along well. Issues were coming. We were not discussing them. We were pushing them under the table.
And by this time you had moved back to the village where you had
Yes, we were together every day, every other time. And what really happened, I think her decision to leave me, or rather to separate bedrooms, really was disastrous. Because finally, the emotional attachment, body attachment had broken up. The emotional attachment continued breaking up. And after almost about 12 months of not living together, I realized that the connection, the link was too weak to hold us together. And that's when I replayed back in my mind, and I said, and honestly, a man may not withstand the call of nature for that long. It became a little bit difficult for me to withstand.
Did you try to persuade her and mend faith?
Before I really went out.
So here now we are seeing where all this conflict in this marriage that was just maybe non-communication, issues that came up that was not dealt with until it come to a place where, and I believe that this is where a lot of marriages break down, where you're no longer emotionally or physically attached, and where you just go through the motion, and now one person take the initiative to say, well, I no longer want to share a bed with you or a room with you. And as this man was saying, is that it wasn't anything that was a physical abuse. It wasn't infidelity. It was just the lack of communication, that the lack of knowledge in terms of how a marriage relationship should be, make them both victims, and they both suffer because of the lack of knowledge. Even though they stayed together for so many years, after a while it just became too much to handle. And when that emotional and physical disconnection was apparent, when one left the bedroom to move to another room, it also created a different problem. Something that could have worked on before now came to such a bigger issue. So let's continue to listen.
I remember it was the month of August when I told her, we cannot continue living like this. Please take this paper, and I have this paper, and I gave her a paper and a pen, and I took a paper and a pen, and I asked her, please, I have issues. I have a lot of complaints about you. We cannot continue living like this. I want you to write all the complaints you have against me, and I write all the complaints I have against you. Let us exchange. Then she refused. She just refused. I told her, please, is it too difficult? Am I asking for something so difficult? Are you comfortable the way we are living? And it's like, I don't have time for that. So my last word was, one day you will regret it. one day you'll remember that I told you. And then thereafter, I never revisited the issue until the month of December 2016, when I could not contain myself any longer, and I decided to now get out of my marriage. Like I started earlier, I was not a urbanizer, and therefore it's not that I had spare wheels. So basically I had to look for a fresh spare wheel, if so I may say it. And I landed on another woman who had also earlier separated from her marriage. And so, as they say, the rest is history. Okay? And things went pretty fast. And by the time she was coming to know it, I had gotten far inside to the extent that really coming back was difficult. And therefore, I was left with, again, the option of trying to balance things. I mean, there is what I want, there is what she wants, but there is what ought to be.
Yeah.
Okay? And therefore, I could not just make a decision about me, because it was no longer me. It was no longer the two of us. Actually, there was another person. Actually, two other people involved already. So these people, definitely, for there to be a long-lasting peace, they had to be in the negotiating table.
Yeah.
By default, because my involvement, my connection already affected them. And I did try to propose about this kind of negotiation, but she didn't want to hear any of that.
You do have children together. How many with your ex-wife?
We had 3 children, all of them grown-ups now. Actually, the last born is quite is an adult. He was waiting to graduate from Egerton University. And so we had 3 children. One unfortunately died in 2021.
I'm so sorry about that.
I beg your pardon?
I'm so sorry about that.
Thanks. My son developed also some kind of mental health issues. I didn't know it. Unfortunately, I never knew that mental health is not madness. Mental health is a mental state of one's ability to cope with the pressures of life.
Yeah.
I didn't know. Unfortunately, until then, I associated mental health with madness, which it is not. So I only saw his character, his conduct, which sometimes I felt was not good. I would try to talk to him. It was not working.
What are some of the things he would do that would make you question his mental state?
Withdrawal. My son had withdrawn from his parents. Even sometimes he would prefer to be alone when his brothers are with the family. He spent a lot on social media. He spent a lot alone, and he was just difficult. I would say it reached a point when he became almost rebellious, kind of. He never drank. Funny, interestingly, he was never into alcohol. He was not a drinker. He was a teetotaler. He never was into girls, and he only had one permanent girlfriend, I would say, right from university. And unfortunately, I didn't know that my son was going through some mental challenges. And it's only much later when he died, and I got hold of his poems. He was a poet. And when I got to read some of his poems, I cried. And I have saved those poems. I have saved those poems, and every time
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
I just wish my son had come to me and told me, Dad, this is the way I feel.
And so here we see that the relationship between the husband and the wife after the death of the son should have been a reason maybe to draw them closer back together. But it did not, in the way that this husband was hoping that this incident will draw his wife and his children and him as a family. And so, because he wasn't willing to compromise and change to suit, the person his wife wanted him to change to be, they continue with the separation. So listen.
So now sometimes I sit and try to remember. When I try to put the pieces together and I say, oh my goodness, this thing was all there. But then what I would tell every parent is to be very sensitive to their child's behavior, to their child's character, my son would stay even for a whole week without sleep, and I took it as normal, He never told me. I would wake them up in the morning to do morning fatigue, like slashing the compound, clearing the compound. And my son wouldn't, so I would feel angry and tell him, why? I gave you guys a task. Is it too difficult when I say that you clear the compound? Because I'm talking to a 22, 23-year-old boy. So I expect him to do that. But little did I know that the previous night my son didn't sleep. He hasn't slept. And of course I know when somebody has gone for 2-3 days without sleep, it just doesn't work. He breaks down. And this is exactly what my son was going through. He would go for later on, now I came to learn, his brothers told me that he used to go for a week without sleep. So it breaks my heart. And he died a painful death. And I just wish he could come back to life. And I tell him how much I love him, how much I just do to him. I can do for him anything. Because then I realized that the things he did, I remember I could call him and he doesn't pick my phone, even up to 20 times. Then later on when I come to ask him in the evening, why I called you, you didn't pick my phone. Oh, Dad, I'm sorry, my phone wasn't near me. Yet he never left his phone. He went to the toilet with his phone. He was constantly on phone. He's eating on phone. When he's cooking, he's on phone. So for him to tell me that he was away from his phone for 2 hours, I never bought it. So I didn't know that he just didn't want to talk to anybody.
What had happened to him the day you found out he had passed on?
My son was very okay on that material day. I had a Zoom meeting on peace. I'm a Rotary Peace Fellow. I'm a Rotary Peace Fellow with Professional Development Certificate from Bangkok, Thailand. So I had a Zoom meeting with my fellow Rotary.
Yes, and I agree with that sometimes we allow things to go on for too long. Sometimes we linger in situation until it festers to a point of from resentment to hatred and even violence. And so we see when we first recognize that there's a problem, a situation, then we should, as Christians, we should make sure we take care of that situation. And so as we come to the end of this video, we want to just hear the conclusion of the video, this video.
Rotary Peace Fellows. And under a tree. I had that Zoom meeting under a tree. Then it started drizzling. I went to their house. They have a separate house, the boys' quarters. And so I was doing a meeting from there. Then he came. It was already around 7. It was nearing 7 in the evening. He came and he found me sitting and immediately walked out. And he came late again after about 15 minutes. He found me still on phone. He walked out. So finally, I thought that maybe he wants to do something. I walked out of their house and went to the main house. And it's like he was cooking. He was in the kitchen cooking. He was a disciplined boy. At 24, he's the one who used to cook for the family. He washed dishes. He cooked. He mopped the house. He did everything, really. Then it was around 8 now, and he told us, well, I want to go and sleep. Do you guys want me to cook for you anything before I go to sleep? And he told me, no. The food that we ate for lunch, there's still plenty of it. I think it's what we'll prepare. If you want to cook anything special for yourself, please go ahead. And he told her, no, me, I'm okay. I'm going to sleep. Okay, good night. He went to their house. Then after about 40 minutes, he came back and then asked, hey, I thought you were already asleep. No, I've come to drink some water. So he went to the kitchen, then walked out after a short while. And that's it. So we sat there, we had supper, we were watching TV. Then at around 10:30 or so.
Yes, so we see here where this man still loved his wife. He just wished they could have done things differently. And it's out of ignorance, lack of communication, lack of teaching or mentoring. And so we see that this marriage that probably could have been saved had there been early intervention end up in him packing and moving and getting out of a 27-year-old marriage. And I believe that with God in the center, when we put God first, as we start out our life together, we know that He could make a difference. And so let's continue to trust Him, to continue to know that He will always be in the center of our life as long as we invite Him to. Father, thank you for this interview. Thank you for this message today. And Lord, I pray that it will be a blessing. It will help someone that they would not get to this point before they either seek for help or resolve the situation together. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Until we meet again, have a blessed life and continue to share this channel, make comments, and subscribe. Bye.